And here we are ready to get started. Please continue to use the chat feature if you have any questions, and we very much look forward to speaking with you. Thank you.
Hey everybody, this is Alex Engler. Thanks, Jenny, for the introduction. Really excited to be with you all today. I had sent an email to a bunch of you and got a ton of responses. I haven't been able to respond to everybody yet. You all actually wrote back a lot, and that was great. So I was really excited to see how much interest there was. And frankly, it's sort of a fascinating background from people. About half of the respondents were in the U.S. and half spread across the globe, all Latin America, which is exciting. So hopefully I can sort of speak to maybe some specific issues of interest. But I really appreciate all your responses, and I will get back to you all individually when I can. Here today to talk about the Master's in Science and Computational Analysis and Public Policy, unique and rigorous degree. Please do send along your questions. I tried to incorporate as much as I could beforehand, but I will inevitably forget some of it, and we can always go back. So you may already know this, but it's a joint degree between the Harris School of Public Policy and the Department of Computer Science at the University of Chicago. One of the things that's really great is the buy-in of the faculty. You could imagine a joint program like this not really getting the attention that it warrants from one side or the other, but really is joint in across the two schools, and really there's quite a bit of buy-in from the faculty on both sides, which is really great. Harris professors, I've had some of them say that this sort of represents a real future for the school and the future of policy analysis as well.
It looks like we just got a note about the sound.
Am I too far from the mic?
No, I think we're okay. Let's just do a quick check on that. It looks like sound is good on our end. I'm not seeing any issues. If someone can use the chat feature and confirm that they can hear, then we'll just continue, and we will send out the recording. The recording should work for everyone. Sorry, Alex, go ahead.
Sounds still good.
Sounds still good. Okay, thank you. We'll proceed. Sorry about that. I think it was Christina said she had a sound issue. We'll be able to send that out after this. Go ahead, Alex. Thank you.
Okay, well, sorry about the problems. Glad it's working for everybody else. I'm going to talk a little bit about this Venn diagram here. If this looks familiar, it's because I stole it. This was cribbed from Drew Conway, who's a relatively well-known data scientist in that field. Except his version at the bottom says domain knowledge, essentially saying that the critical overlap of these skills is to have a serious leg of computer science, a serious leg of statistical knowledge and theory, and also to understand your domain. That is, to understand, the data that you're working on, the methods that are valuable in your field. This is why, so the program is designed like this. We really took that advice to heart. We care a lot more about, for instance, evaluating the, causation. Did a change in policy substantially improve health outcomes for people? We care a lot more about that than we do, evaluating weblogs. And so that's reflected in the program. We teach rigorous computer science and statistics background, but geared towards making valuable contributions to economics and public policy. And you might see this manifest in the program in a variety of ways. And there's sort of another argument for why we do this. One is sort of it's specific to our field. And two comes from this Jeff Hammerbacher quote, who's also a well-known data scientist, talking about the best minds of my generation are thinking about how to make people click on ads. That stinks. It's pretty close to what he said. You might be the best data scientist that Uber has ever seen. And if you were, you could probably increase the efficiency of their trip routing by 1%. That would be amazing to them. It would be a huge deal. But that maybe to Uber is a big deal, but to the world, I'm not sure if that's a tremendous contribution. And this is because you wouldn't be their first or second data scientist. You'd be their 1,000th or 1,500th data scientist. But there's other options. There's places you can go in which your contributions will make a much larger distinction difference. And what I want to talk about is this little series, and this was something that just happened to me. I went to Shy Hack Night, which is a data community event here in Chicago, and the chief data officer of the city of Chicago was presenting about a project in which they started predicting and then releasing the predictions of the West Nile virus. You can see I misspelled in the tweet West Nike virus. I swear that's supposed to be West Nile virus. It's much more threatening. And this project about predicting outbreaks of West Nile and then informing the public with it actually came from an MS-CAPP student, which I didn't realize at the time. This is the actual series of tweets in which I learned this. You can see one of the data scientists from the CDO's office there commenting. He took an internship at the Chicago Department of Innovation and Technology. They had an idea for this project, but it hadn't really gone anywhere. He took it off the shelf, started making it work, and now, a little after a year after his work, they've deployed, and this algorithm is now in use, informing the public. And that's the kind of work that just literally would not have happened if he wasn't there. And I think that's the kind of difference you can often make, contributing in the public sector with the sort of advanced technical skills you can get in this program. So that's a little bit about the inspiration. You know, a lot of the questions and feedback we got was on the curriculum, so I'll talk about that for a while. We have some questions, and hopefully we can get into the nuts and bolts a bit. So it's the curriculum. I will share these slides, so you'll notice there are a bunch of links. You will all have access to these slides, and you will all be able to follow these links and explore to your heart's content. This is the first year. I said this is a three-legged stool. It might be a little bit hard to see, but I can make this a little more clear in a second. The three foundational core areas of the program are computer science, statistics, and then a combination of economics and policy analysis. That's, again, the domain knowledge. And so what you might see here is a little bit of a progression. You have a statistics 1 and a statistics 2. In the next year, that leads into program evaluation. You have a computer science and a computer science with applications 1 and 2, and that leads into databases for public policy and also machine learning, as well as sort of backed up by that math class. And you have a 2-part microeconomics series that leads into third semester of analytical politics in the second year. So the first year, pretty crowded, very full, also very difficult. It's a pretty rigorous year. And the idea is to get you sped up so that in the second year you can take pretty advanced elective courses. So you can see that the second year is much more open. There's that analytical politics I mentioned, program evaluation, which is an important course about causal inference and policy. But this comes from a desire to make sure that students have the flexibility and the foundations to take really advanced courses in their second year.
So it looks like we are getting some questions in, and I just want to keep encouraging everyone to use the chat feature to submit questions. What often happens as we do our webinars is once we get to the end and we say that we're done taking questions, a lot of questions fly in. So please send them in as we're going through this. An interesting question we received, Alex. Manuel asked, for those with some background in statistics, are the harder versions of the courses challenging?
Yeah, that's a great question. We got the question a little bit earlier from Manuel. If you look at these slides, you see there are different options for statistics and for microecon. You can, if you have a background. So this is, a three-legged stool. We don't expect people to come in with a basis in all of this. So we'll have people come in with maybe no computer science or no economics backgrounds, and that's completely fine. But we also have some people who come in and some of this material will be repetitive for them. And so there's two options in that circumstance. One, you can take harder levels of statistics or microeconomics. There's a sort of a graduate introductory level. There is a mathematical version of statistics or an advanced version of microeconomics. And actually for both, you can even take the PhD level courses that are normally reserved for the public policy PhD students. That is a pretty wide range of difficulty. It is very unusual for people to come in and not find anything in that range that would be challenging and help them develop. That being said, if that's the case, you can waive. There are some course waivers available. For Stats and Econ, one of the two introductory courses is waivable if you have a demonstrated history. And for computer science, there are tests available. We have a placement exam that you can use to waive out of the introductory computer science series. And the elective situation is pretty great too.
It looks like we have another question from Biggie. He asked about the statistical language. What statistical languages are taught in the program?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So for the statistics series, we are teaching both R and Stata, those oriented towards exploratory data analysis. And the Stata side of that will probably continue into the program evaluation as well. Computer science with applications 1 and 2, as well as machine learning for public policy, those are oriented towards Python. And that combination, those 3 languages, are very much an intentional core of the program. R and Python are your workhorse open source statistical languages. Doesn't really matter if you don't totally know what that means, but what it means is they're oriented towards being the most valuable sort of basis for working with data and computer science, especially sort of this is a very modern combination. And Stata is very valuable as a proprietary statistical language. A lot of econometric and statistical analysis done in government still use this Stata. So those are your workhorses. In the electives, you see some more development. You see JavaScript and D3, which is sort of a modern framework for data visualization. You see that in my database class. If you take a big data class, you'll see Spark for distributed computing and work in the cloud as well. And I can talk some more about those electives, because you'll see there's quite a bit of elective options here. So there are quite a few.
Questions, yeah, we receive questions quite frequently on electives, and a lot of questions on the background that we're seeing for this program. So we've had several questions, one from Will in particular. People with strong quantitative computer science, quantitative backgrounds, are they able to take a lot of courses?
Yeah, so one of the cool parts of this program is how flexible it is, and I'll show you a couple examples in a second. This leads really well into that. But what's nice is how many electives you can take, because actually fundamentally all graduate classes are available to you. I think I just learned that recently, but functionally every graduate class at the university is available. Not all of those are going to be perfectly relevant to you, but you can see that there are electives specific to the CAPP program, all of the electives within the Harris School and the Department of Computer Science, and then there's another sort of series of institutes and schools that are relevant. We have a lot of people take classes at the Toyota Technology Institute at Chicago, which is the TTIC. That can be stuff like advanced machine learning, deep learning, natural language processing, and we have also people take economics, statistics, business courses, law school courses. Within the core, there is just a ton to take at Harris and the Department of Computer Science. Harris, which is growing very quickly, has over 40 faculty now. And that just means there's a ton of electives. Some stuff I just saw recently that looked interesting, you know, history of financial crises. There's politics and policy of Latin America. Really just a ton there. I'd say there's a couple of courses, one on water policy and hydropolitics. With the computer science options too, you may be familiar with this more sort of data sciencey side, but there's a lot on building too. Software development. We've had a bunch of CAPP students take iOS and Android development, that's building applications for mobile phones, user interface and user experience, and computer security is another popular one. I can definitely come back to this in more detail if anyone's interested. The elective situation, there's a ton there. And so what I wanted to talk about, sort of listing electives is tough, but this is maybe a slightly better way to look at the core. And this is a little dependency graph, you might call it, with easier, more introductory courses on the left, and as you follow to the right, you're seeing more advanced courses that you would take later, and sort of what they're built on. And so to the right, later, more difficult, and the nodes are the courses, and what you would call the edges, the connections between them, are the sort of dependencies or what builds on one another. And so this is the core. You can see Econ 1, Econ 2, into analytical politics and program evaluation at the bottom, Stats 1 and Stats 2, CS 1 and CS 2, and machine learning is kind of the combination of all these courses. That's what the kind of this is the required courses. This is all of your first year and a little bit of the second. And what I want to show you is what people did with this afterwards. And so we have a kind of data science for social good path. These are me coming up with names for this, but I like sort of how they sound. And so you see the core is still there, and now there's an additional set of courses afterwards. Large-scale data analysis, which is a big data class. Statistical learning, which in this case is a more advanced version of machine learning. A spatial data science class, a time series analysis class, machine learning and policy lab, and that was an applied lab in which the student worked with the professor and a group of other students to do a real-world application. of which many students, it's not a requirement, but many students do engage in policy labs here. And this was a really compelling series of courses. The student came out with a lot of work products, very strong technical skills, and use of those skills in an applied sense in policy. And they went on to work at Civis Analytics as a data scientist. Civis being a pretty well-known firm, the team founded by the ex-Obama data science team, or one of them anyway. But this may be what the program is best known for. In fact, it's occasionally suggested to me that the program's name should be changed to Data Science and Public Policy. But if you look at some of the other curricular paths that students have taken, you see very different options as well. You see sort of a more data-driven governance option. And the student took more policy labs, more sort of subjective public policy courses at Harris, some advanced machine learning, but significantly more on the sort of applications side. And this student is now running a data team, director of one of the data analytics teams at New York City, just 2 years after graduating. And then a third sort of completely different story. There we go. This student took a much more developy and visualization approach. They took data visualization, spatial data scientist, data science, but also software engineering, intro to iOS and advanced iOS development, as well as backends for mobile development. And this person went actually somewhere fascinating. They just, I think, right now are finishing up a visual journalism internship at 538, which is, I think, a path that most people might not suspect you could come sort of follow after this program, but if you really take that sort of more development, maybe you might call it civic technology angle to the program, you can come out and be really a pretty excellent developer to the point where you can be contributing to the graphics at 538. So those are some of the sort of curricular paths you can. Again, it's the flexibility of the program that sort of gets people there, and why we like the sort of rigor and the depth of the foundational year lends itself to that flexibility in the second year. So a little more on career outcomes. We have the Harris numbers. So our program is new. It's only graduated a little over 25 people in 2 years. The third and fourth year cohorts are, getting bigger, but we don't have a ton of alumni yet. So we're going to point you towards the Harris numbers for now, which 97% of graduate circled employment, and of those, 92% were satisfied or very satisfied with those job outcomes. And we think those numbers are pretty good, and I have no reason to think the CAP employment numbers would be any worse. They certainly come out with a strong skill set. So this is mostly about MPPs, but same policy school. And of the titles that we do know, we've seen people become data team leaders, data scientists, and engineers, probably the most common. A significant number of policy researchers, and then some applications developers and some technical project managers as well. And I liked this quote from the former MS-CAPP director, who was here at the very beginning of the program. Sort of in the middle, we designed CAP with the guidance of innovators in the public and private tech sectors to ensure that between coursework, research opportunities, and workshops, CAP students are spending their time building a set of skills that can be directly applied to transformative technology work. I really still think that that's true. And the more that we talk to employers, if anything, the most common sentiment that I've encountered has been disappointment that there are so few CAP students looking for work. We right now definitely are getting continued interest from employers and almost no one to send their way. So it's a small sample size. There's a statistician I should mention, but I think can honestly be very bullish about the career prospects of the students coming out of this. And partially because it was very recently designed to be valuable for a sector that sees a serious scarcity of technical expertise. And I should mention for the international students who might be interested, the program does qualify for the STEM OPT extension, which is a total, this is not 3 additional years, but a total of 3 years of employment time for international students. So, if you graduate the program and get a job, you can stay in the US for 3 years under that STEM opt extension. Okay, a little more on the experience of the program. A couple things you can do while you're here. We have some affiliated, there's a ton of affiliated centers. I'm going to mention a couple that are particularly pertinent. We have Raed Ghani's Center for Data Science and Public Policy. He was Obama's 2012 chief data scientist, and then came and founded this center. You may also know him from the Data Science for Social Good Fellowship Program, which is a summer fellowship. And their work is right here on campus. Currently, they have a research assistant who is a CAP student working, I think, on HIV prediction and prevention with machine learning. And Raed Ghani actually teaches the machine learning and public policy class in the core as well. Another one that's particularly interesting, the Chicago Urban Labs. These are a set of 5 different labs aimed at influencing sort of they're trying to sort of a new model of public policy research in which they run experiments within cities and then evaluate the outcomes. And they do that across crime, education, energy, health, and poverty. And really, I mean, there's a ton of these. They go on for forever. So I did link to everything here, but I feel like it would take quite a while to talk about all these.
One question that we sometimes get from our students is questions about internships. It's pretty common for students to ask about that. What type of internships are available for the CAP students?
Yeah, okay. So, right. So one of the advantages of all these centers is that almost all of them, I think I haven't seen one that doesn't here, has or will. I guess Pearson's very new, so maybe they haven't yet. But pretty much everybody here has interns. We have one at the Argonne National Lab. We have one at Chapin Hall right now. I know people have been at Newark, and I know people have been at Urban Labs and the Data Science Center. So these are a great avenue. And certainly there's, I don't know if there's exclusively, but there's probably some preference for Chicago students, and the CAP students are have very applicable work skills to a lot of the work of these places. So there's all these related centers. And then there's a whole bunch of other places outside of University of Chicago as well. Right now, we have people with civic analytics. In the past, we've had people at the Chicago Mayoral Fellowship, in Illinois government, at the American Institutes for Research in Chicago, which is the public policy research firm, and similar. Right now, we also have people in DC at think tanks like the Urban Institute, and also the Sunlight Foundation, which is a cool example. I can tell you a little more about that in a second. There's research assistantships with professors. I know there's one student doing Latin American social policy research with a professor in Harris. There's another doing applied computer security research in the computer science school. And then sort of random things filtered. Oh, the New York City Federal Reserve Bank, and I think we have some other people in internationally doing financial analytics at Black and others. The list goes on. There's a ton. I would say that the skill set and the prevalence of organizations affiliated with the CAP program really make it, I wouldn't say it's easy. It can be competitive to get internships, but there's a lot of options. We are also working on facilitated internships. So these, essentially, we are creating agreements with organizations to place Harris students with them every year. We're in our 3rd year of an agreement with the Sunlight Foundation, of which Open Cities, the Stephen Larrick, is an employee. And that's gone really well, and we think we're going to sort of keep investing in these where, they want people who have sort of specific set of skills, and rather than them looking every year, they just sort of agree to take interns every summer. And we're looking at this at really reputable organizations. Sunlight absolutely being a great example. I think some others that we have in our sites are Mathematica Policy Research, the Pew Research Center, also quite possible we'll do one there. And so these facilitated internships can make it a little easier for CAP students to find a place to land that makes sense for them. But you also have the option to go find out whatever you're interested on your own. Yeah, okay. We also do a bunch of speakers and events. There's a ton of these as well. I left some of these up. We do CAP sessions on Friday. These are employers come and speak, experts in the field, and also sometimes workshops. The Harris School has a ton of events. The Institute of Politics, which is run out of Harris and is led by David Axelrod, has a series of events. Before I mentioned TTIC, which is that Toyota Technology Institute, same thing. all the affiliated centers. And then Chicago has a great data community. There's Chi Hacknight, which is a really, really great sort of core of the community of Chicago's data scene, as well as their Python group. And just 2 weeks ago, Our Ladies, which is a global organization in a couple, like 100 some cities, they just founded in Chicago by University of Chicago students. So they have been hosted on campus, I think, so far, which is really exciting, really wonderful organization. I've got a little more on the application process, just some notes, and then hopefully I can shut up and take some questions. First, the link to apply is here if you're interested, and then I want to talk a little bit about what makes a strong candidate for the program. First, I'm going to start with the note at the bottom, because I think this is the largest misconception about the program. There is no computer science requirement. There is a significant lack of people in the public sector who want to do nonprofit work, who want to do things that value the public sector, that have a CS background. It sort of defeats the purpose to require it. So while the introductory year is really rigorous, it doesn't have any specific undergraduate requirement. So whether you've never taken an econ class or have no programming experience, that shouldn't dissuade you from applying necessarily. Things you will make you significantly more competitive: some demonstration of a strong quantitative background, whether in GRE or in grades. That's a good one. The math is pretty rigorous. This is the University of Chicago program, and it lives up to that reputation. Some demonstrated interest in public policy and social good, whether from the courses you've taken, your undergrad, or your work afterwards. Generally, an excellent academic history. Work experience certainly helps. I think the average for the program is somewhere in that 3 to 6 year range, probably the average, maybe around there. So work experience certainly helps. We'd like people to have some sense of how in the real world they can use the skills learning. That being said, we do have people come straight through from undergrad as well, though not a ton. And then sort of lastly, intellectual curiosity generally. We want people who are going to come and try to bridge some gaps, right? We want you to invest in computer science and statistics, and then really think about how you can apply those things to improving governance and policy and social good. And that takes sort of a broad set of intellectual ambition. So there's actually a full requirements page. This is the application requirements. Couple papers, transcripts, letters of recommendation, the GRE, and TOEFL for international candidates, as well as your resume. I just have this up here as a reminder. This is stuff you can all look up on the website, but I have that link there at the bottom in case it's of interest. Did want to mention these deadlines as well. The upcoming, the closest one, it's early still. The closest one is until November 27th for early action. And I think the one note about, several people asked about financial aid availability. I'd say the one thing to know about early action is that the earlier you apply, the sort of, basically we have more money early. And as we make notifications, we sort of give it away. And so later applicants, I don't want to say there won't be money available, but it is more likely that financial aid is available earlier in the process than later. I have a couple other slides on the university real quick, just because these are big picture highlights that are kind of interesting. We have the Keller Center. So this is the Keller Center is the new Harris building, and I've let this, that should be done at some point in 2018, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. And this is a LEED Platinum certified building. It's supposed to be just like sort of the pinnacle of conservation in building design. You can count on maybe 2 hands and 2 toes how many buildings meet this criteria. It's a very, very small number. And it's a brand new building that's going to house the significantly expanded Harris School of Public Policy. which I think I mentioned is growing significantly at the moment, which is nice in terms of elective offerings. The other interesting ongoing development at the moment there we go. Is there's a link here to the University of Chicago campus, which is really, really beautiful. This is in fact a link to the architectural site, but it's nice to peruse if you're not familiar with the campus. It's absolutely gorgeous. And the other thing I wanted to mention, right around the corner, we are getting the Obama Presidential Library, which will be just down the street. So I don't know, maybe these are just things that I'm very excited about, but I'm very excited about it. And that you can see the Museum of Science and Industry off to the side there, which is also sort of right down from University of Chicago's campus. So that's all I have. I wanted to leave this up for a few minutes. I've spoken to many of you already. More than happy to have a conversation, so please feel encouraged to reach out to me. You're also encouraged to follow the program on Twitter if you're sort of interested about the stories and what the graduates are doing and any developments in terms of faculty and materials. And also, I'd encourage you, if you're seriously interested, come visit campus. If you come during the academic year, you're sort of not only welcome to just seeing the campus and taking a tour, but there'll be students around. You can sit in on a class, meet with faculty and staff of the program, and whatever else we can do to sort of familiarize you with the program. So I'm gonna stop talking.
Okay.
And I don't know if we have other.
I'll go through some of the questions that we frequently get.
Sure.
And so everyone, just let you know, if we have, again, any technical issues, any issues with our Wi-Fi, we will send out this recording if we get cut off at all. So one question we received from our students is the early application of binding process. So this is a frequent question that we get. Early action is non-binding. There's really no disadvantage to applying early in the process. When students apply early, it lets you, kind of gives you a longer cycle, more opportunities to attend events, more opportunities to engage with us, more to learn about Harris and the university in general. So if you are the type of person who already has your GRE done, or you're going to be taking it in the next few weeks, then I would really encourage you to, log in, start an application. You should be able to do that now for the fall of 2018. Just start looking at that, getting that process started, and then you have plenty of time to complete that application. If you haven't taken your GRE yet, and maybe you weren't planning on taking it until later in November or December, that's okay too. You can apply for round 1, but if you are in a situation where you have a lot of your materials ready to go, then getting that application started early is no disadvantage to you in early action. And then some other questions that we will typically get from students, it's very common, students who are applying to the MS-CAPP or the MACRM program often ask if they are not admitted to that program, will they be considered for an MPP or MA program? You can check that on the application. So if you aren't sure, but you're thinking MS-CAPP is the program, but you also want to be considered for other programs, it's at no disadvantage to you. We do not look at your application negatively. It's not any type of trick question. Sometimes students think it's a trick, and if they show interest in more than one program, it'll make it look like they're not fully interested or they're confused. That's not the case. So that's just some general information to keep in mind about that process. If you have other questions, we really encourage you to use the chat feature. I'm kind of scrolling through to see if we've received any other questions, anything we might have missed. Looks like we had a question at the start. In terms of preparation for the rigorous course flow, do you have any suggestions for statistics or CS classes we might take online that could bring us up to speed?
Oh, that's a great question. Trying to think. There's different. So first of all I can definitely respond to this a little more specifically on computer science versus statistics. For computer science, there's the section 2. I would say Introduction to Python for Data Analysis is maybe a good place to start. That is a free book. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. It's just Python for Data Analysis. That is a free ebook, you shouldn't have to pay for it, by Wes McKinney, who's really, really well-known Python developer. And that is a really good introduction to Python, which is a core part of probably the most difficult courses, which is the Computer Science with Applications 1 and 2. Those are certainly very difficult. And Python for data analysis will get you working in sort of a pertinent language and sort of up to speed on some of the concepts that you'll be introduced to. It's a little more data-oriented and less sort of computational science or computer science-oriented than the program is, but I think it's still a good place to start and will familiarize you with a lot of the environment. You could also consider R for data science, which is another free book by Hadley Wickham, R for data science, and you can find that. You should be able to just Google that, either one, Python for data analysis or R for data science, and find versions online. And that's probably where I would start. Certainly, there's a lot of Coursera classes that are good introductory ones as well. Trying to think if I can think of one specifically that's the best place to start. I'm not sure I have a strong preference.
Any statistical book you recommend?
Oh, sure, statistical book. Introduction to Statistical Learning is definitely the best one. So if you want to, it's a tough book, but it is really meant to be a foundation before getting into the advanced courses. And so Introduction to Statistical Learning, which is by Trevor Hasty, also free online. Noticing a theme there. That's definitely the statistical side. Yep.
Okay, great. So another question we received earlier, the difference between MS-CAPP and MPP in terms of skills cultivated and future career path, and then the advantage the program will bring. So the first question, and we talked a little bit about the career outcomes report, I did want to mention that if you go into the website, you can view the full career outcomes report, and that includes information kind of by program in the different areas that our students went after that program. So sometimes I think students can find it helpful to look at that full report and see where MPP students landed versus where MS-CAPP students. In general, when a student is looking at an MPP versus either MS-CAPP, MACRM, or MS-CSP, usually students who are interested in the MPP program are not quite sure about their definitive career path. Students looking at the other degrees tend to have a more solid idea of at least the type of area and field that they want to bring into. Alex, did you have anything you'd like to add about kind of the difference with the skills that would be cultivated?
Yeah, you will take or can take the same statistical and economics progression and the MPP. You notice the core of the MPP and the core of the MS-CAPP looks a little similar, and so you notice the 5 computer science classes that CAPP throws in there. There are other minor differences as well, but the big difference comes from that 5-part computer science series. That's a pretty rigorous introduction to computer science. You combine that with the rigorous stats introduction, and there's a pretty wide set of skills you end up being capable of learning, especially in the second year, in terms of things like advanced machine learning, which is for predictive problems, in terms of natural language processing, dealing with text data at a very high level, graph theory for working with network data, large-scale data analysis, and sort of cloud compute. A lot of this stuff requires core underlying computer science concepts. You really can't work with modern cloud, like modern big data, without understanding cloud compute, something about the Linux command line, the math behind distributed analysis, and the computer science behind distributed memory. There's a lot there, and that is basically a background of knowledge that's sort of prohibitive to someone who doesn't take that kind of CS core. And so if you want to come out and do that kind of sort of modern big data analysis or predictive methods with machine learning to take the roles that sort of a modern data scientist might do, that is sort of a differentiator that this program can offer that isn't impossible, maybe isn't totally impossible for them to do, but would be difficult. I think those other career paths we saw were clearly quite different as well, where you saw someone becoming sort of into into sort of a developer role at 538. And you could argue that a lot of these tools are very useful for the sort of public policy research that might be a little more normal for an MPP to do. Maybe not a difference maker in the sense that you know, completely, you know, gets a job, a sort of completely different type of job, but text data is important to policy research. You know, reproducible research methods are as well. These are sort of things that the CAP degree might focus on more than an MPP would.
Okay. Another question we received, do we need a background in certain math courses such as linear algebra?
Oh, yeah, great question. So there is a ramp up in terms of the math curriculum. By that I mean there is a several week-long math math camp for all the Harris students. So CAP students and MPPs take that. Where the difference really becomes a little more poignant is in the second quarter, where there is that math for computer science and data analysis class. And I can go back to that slide real quick. Yeah, so if you see in the winter that mathematics for computer science and data analysis, that class is a pretty rigorous introduction to linear algebra, mostly, as well as a little bit of discrete math. And that class is really there to prepare students for the math required in machine learning. There is also some calculus involved in these classes, in the statistics classes, and in the analytical politics class actually has some calculus in it. But I would say that linear algebra is certainly the most foundational, and specifically linear algebra oriented towards matrices. That's the most foundational skill. That being said, you see other types of math that can be very helpful. Discrete math helps for if you want to take the algorithms class. I think I mentioned calculus a second ago, very important for optimization and for distributed methods. So linear algebra is sort of the important one. There is a whole course on that aspect of the class, so I don't think we're asking people to demonstrate any specific type of background. But if you did well in a linear algebra class in undergrad, or if you did well in the math series, that's going to be good signaling for us that you're going to be prepared for the quantitative rigor of the program.
So I'm going back through the chat features one more time, just trying to check and see if we have any other questions that we might have missed. I'm not seeing any other questions. I do want to just mention to everyone in the group that we have lots of really exciting events that will be coming up. And we have events around the country as well as around the world. So our, let's see, our next, one thing everyone will want to take a look at is the Harris events page. And this page will always list kind of upcoming admission events and things like that we have happening. So we always encourage you to check this out. One that we are really excited about, we have very limited seating available at, in fact, it might be full. If you're in the Chicago area and you haven't yet, you may be able to register as a prospective student. If you're not able to register, send us an email. It's our event on Monday, August 28th with Jens Ludwig. If you're interested in this event and you weren't able to register, please email harrisadmissions@uchicago.edu, and we'll do our best to get you in if we still have seats available. But always check back on this link in this website for updated events and things like that. I know that we will definitely be in DC, Boston, New York.
I'm actually in DC on Thursday, Friday, and my schedule isn't super open. But if you're interested in finding 15 minutes or a half hour for coffee, I would do my best to schedule it with you. So for those of you in DC, feel free to reach out.
And we'll be out in San Francisco and LA as well. And then right now, Ranjan is traveling. He's in India. I think he'll be doing some visits in China. So we have lots of exciting visits, lots of exciting stuff happening here. We always encourage you to reach out if you have questions, if you have concerns, if you want to visit campus. Outside of that, we look forward to continuing to have more of these webinars. We'll have more guest speakers. If there's anything else you need, just check in with us. We look forward to hearing from you. Thanks, everyone, and thank you for joining us, Alex.
Sure. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.